Welcome to episode 2 of Deconstruct the Universe, where we'll be taking a look at the source material for the world of Versus System 2 PCG. My name is Patrick, and I'll be your host. Deconstructing with me today are Justin and Matt, who will be looking at 2 cards this episode, Ahab and Charlie-27. If you'd like to take a look at the art as we talk about it, please pause this podcast and head on over to our Facebook page to view the posts. We have a lot to go over today, so we're going to get right into it. The first card we'll be deconstructing today is a brand new card that isn't even out yet. Let's take a look at Ahab. Card number FUT023, and the set is Futures Past, which is the first set to be released under the Omega level arc. The team affiliation is Sentinels. Ahab has 1 power. Release the Hounds, which says, when Ahab appears, put a hound into your hand. The rules say that, in the game, if Ahab is in your deck, you start the game with a private out-of-game hand pile. This pile must contain exactly 4 different supporting characters of your choice with Brotherhood, Resistance, and or X-Men team affiliation. These characters can't already be in your deck, and they can't share a name with any characters that are in your deck. When Ahab appears, choose a hound, reveal it to all other players, and then put it into your hand. Ahab also has ranged. The card art is from Extermination from 2018, issue 2, and it is the cover art by Mark Brooks. So Matt, here's where I'll turn it over to you. Talk to us about Mark Brooks. What is his art style? What else has he done? What do you have for us?
So Mark Brooks is truly a favorite artist of mine currently. I actually have quite a few variant covers of his. I have one for a Jean Grey White Phoenix of the Crown Virgin cover, as well as a trio of X-Men. It's Psylocke, Jean in her 90s outfit, and Rogue, I want to say as well. He has sort of like a metallic art style. That's how I've seen it be described. There's always like a sort of sheen to the clothing or pieces on a character, and you can really see that with the Ahab card here. So with Ahab, he has this purpley metal structure all around him. I'm not quite sure if it's just armor on him or if he's literally a head on top of this Sentinel machine body. But Mark Brooks's art really lends itself to this character because you can see that sort of metallic sheen that is so well known in Mark Brooks's art for Ahab here. He typically does a lot of variant covers or just covers themselves. He did all of the covers for the Extermination arc that this card comes from. And he's currently doing a lot more X-Men art for the upcoming Ten of Swords crossover. That's going to be the big X-Men event coming up here shortly. And then when they did the House of X Powers of 10 series that rebooted the X-Men last year, he did the main key art for that series as well. So if you remember any of that art or have seen the upcoming Ten of Swords art, you'll have seen some Mark Brooks art elsewhere as well.
Great. I also know that Mark Brooks is responsible for the art from the 8-cost Spider-Man card from the Webhead set. So if our listeners want to find Mark Brooks online, how could they do that?
Mark Brooks is at Mark Brooks Art on Twitter and Instagram. There is markbrooksart.com as well, where you can check out some variants for purchase. I would also check out his bios on Twitter and Instagram, where he has just started a mailing list. And you can sign up there for any giveaways, sales, exclusive commission opportunities, and things like that. If you really like this art, I really do. I highly recommend it. I think he's great. I also have a little fun fact about Mark Brooks. I actually was able to meet him at Emerald City Comic Con. I want to say it was just this last year. And I asked him what his favorite X-Men to draw is. And he said that it was Rogue. Rogue is his favorite X-Men character to draw because she's from the South, and he grew up in the South. I want to say he specifically said South Carolina. Don't hold me to that, but I know it was from the South somewhere.
Cool. That is a fun fact. So this issue of Extermination was written by Ed Brisson. What else has Ed written that people might know about?
I think most people, at least if you're reading comics currently, he is currently writing New Mutants, Dead Man Logan, and Ghost Rider. I can't say what others might know him from. I really just know him from X-Men. He did an Uncanny X-Men run in 2018. It was of course Extermination, but he also did the Uncanny X-Men Disassembled arc that came after this and led into Age of X-Man. So with the X-Men Disassembled arc, it was turning the idea of Apocalypse on its head and really putting Nate Gray in the Apocalypse role, and he had what were called the Horsemen of Salvation, and that was Magneto, Blob, Omega Red, and Angel. So rather than coming at it like Apocalypse did, where mutants should rule the world because they're the strongest, it's creating a utopia for mutants to exist. So of course, because it's not the real world that these characters belong to, they revolt against it no matter how much of a utopia it is.
So it sounds like Ed makes some pretty unique X-Men stories.
He does, and what was really cool about this era in X-Men between 2018 and 2019, before the House of X, Powers of 10 reboot, is that these writers were given pretty much free rein to do whatever they wanted because the Marvel execs knew that House of X and Powers of 10 was going to reboot the X-Men. So anything that happened right before it didn't necessarily matter because it wasn't going to be crossing over or going into what happens in House of X, Powers of 10. So it really lent itself to a lot of really cool stories that I would like Marvel to go back and give like more time to as maybe mini-series or kind of closing out what some writers did, like Matthew Rosenberg's run or even Ed Brisson's. So I think when artists are given a chance to really create and go crazy and do what they want, you can get a lot of really powerful writing out of it.
Well, speaking of creative, I am very interested to get into this specific character and the story. I'm looking at the cover here for Extermination. I can see Ahab, that's the picture that's on the card, and then I can see 5 characters around him. I'm assuming they're all mutants. I can see Cyclops, Iceman, I think that's Rachel Summers?
No.
It's not Rachel Summers.
That is not Rachel Summers.
Is it A. Summers?
That is... No, technically she never changed her name, so that is still just Jean Grey.
That's Jean Grey. And then who are the characters on the left and the right there?
So it's the original 5 X-Men that you are seeing there. You have Jean to the right of Ahab. On the left, you have Beast, and below him, Cyclops. And then again on the right, counter to them, is Angel and Iceman.
I guess I'm just used to seeing Beast as blue.
So that's what kind of is happening in this, is that the original 5 X-Men in this era have been brought to the future. And they were brought to the future by Beast, by the Blue Beast we all know and love, in hopes that the future versions of these characters would see what they've become and do something to change their thinking or to make different choices so that they don't make the wrong choices that they've made today. So recently, before this extermination event, Cyclops was kind of going off the rails, had a war with the Inhumans and ended up dying during it. You know, Jean becomes the Phoenix, kills a planet. Angel becomes Archangel. Beast makes his own choices that are questionable even to himself. Iceman, he's just, just doing his own thing. I don't think Iceman really had anything to learn. He's just always a good guy. So the thought was from Beast to bring their younger selves to the future, hopefully they'll learn something from the mistakes these characters have made, take it back to the past, and make a better future for themselves. And, of course, doesn't quite always work out.
I mean, they're wearing chains and spiked collars. I don't think it worked out that way. So it looks like they may have run into someone named Ahab. Who is Ahab? What is going on here? And what's going on in this issue? If you could read the intro and let us know, please, why are they wearing chains?
So this is not something that actually happens in the comic. It's really more telling about who Ahab is. He turns mutants into what is called hounds. And as we've seen on the card, he has these hounds and he gets to bring them out, and they're mutant hunters. So the most well-known hound that I think we all know of, as you had said earlier, is Rachel, daughter of Cyclops and Jean. She has a lot of her mom's powers, telepathy, telekinesis, among others. And she is the most predominantly well-known hound. And what these hounds do are they're controlled by Ahab, and they are sent out to find other mutants and to either kill them or bring them in, probably more so for Ahab to make more hounds out of them. And they were introduced in the Days of Future Past arc as a means to hunt down mutants.
The Sentinels or the Hounds?
The Hounds. So the Hounds are there in the Days of Future Past arc to hunt down and either kill or capture mutants.
So is he part Sentinel then?
I don't believe he is part Sentinel. I know he has machine bits, but I don't think they necessarily come from Sentinels themselves.
Okay. I wasn't sure because he's got this like Moby Dick look, but he's like got tech around him, and he's like got X-Men, and it just seems like such a bizarre character to me.
He's definitely a bizarre character, and Ahab really leans itself into the Moby Dick character because he even has like a spear, so it's as if he's like searching for his great white whale or like mutants. I think it is just armor that's very similar to Sentinel armor. If we're wrong about this, if anybody has more information or can point us to a comic book with that info, we'd love to see a comment.
And you mentioned Rachel Summers, and I do want to point out that at the end of the last preview article from Upper Deck and Super Awesome Games, it says, "Come back next time for a Summer's Time preview." I'm hoping that we're going to get some new cards for the characters that we see here on this Extermination cover that will be hounds that fit into the story here that this issue is telling.
If they're going to bring out any hound, I think it would need to be Rachel. Again, I think she's the most predominantly well-known hound. These suits that the original 5 characters are wearing on this Extermination cover are the original hound suit that we typically see Rachel in. And she's had variations of this throughout her years in X-Men. Actually, even in some of the newest issues of X-Men, she is seen in a suit that's similar to this. It's not quite as red, it's a little bit more orangey brown, but it still has the spikes on the shoulders that we see on these costumes here.
Cool. Can you go ahead and read the intro for us?
So the intro that we have for Extermination Issue 2, Ahab, a mutant hunter from the future, attacked Cyclops and Bloodstorm, and Bloodstorm is an alternate version of Storm who's like part vampire. Cyclops managed to drive Ahab and his hounds away, but not before Bloodstorm was killed. Elsewhere, a mysterious hooded figure abducted Iceman and executed Cable. The X-Men had little time to mourn before organizing their response, assuming Ahab to be responsible for both attacks. Unbeknownst to the X-Men, Cable's killer is a younger Cable. So in this Extermination series that we've got going on here, it's pretty much the close to the original 5 X-Men having been brought back from the past, or brought from the past. And the whole story is this younger version of Cable comes to this time period from the future to kill his older self because his older self isn't doing what he should be doing, which is keeping the timeline intact. Because this older version of Cable is allowing the original 5 X-Men to just be around and do whatever they want. He isn't sending them back in time like he should be to make sure that the timeline stays intact. I mean, in this time since these young X-Men have been here, Iceman comes out as gay, Angel gets new cosmic wings, Beast starts learning magic rather than delving into science, Jean Grey learns about her becoming the Phoenix and is trying to do everything she can to not do that. Cyclops, I don't know if he goes through too much. He gets to meet his father, who's off in space before before the time where his older self had. So there's definitely a lot of knowledge that these characters shouldn't have at this point in time. And Cable's trying to come back and fix that. He is, in this issue, he kidnaps Angel to take away his cosmic wings. And the paneling for that is really trying to make it look like Cable's a bad guy because he's got Angel like strung up and is like sawing off the wings. And it really just doesn't paint him in a good light. But all he's trying to do is remove these cosmic metal wings and give him back his feathery ones so that he can send him back to the past and restore the timeline. So that's all he's trying to do here. But of course, Ahab has come to this timeline as well in the hopes to kill these young X-Men so that they cannot exist at all. And then that's more dead mutants for him. So there's a couple different fronts happening here. But in the end, they, if we can do spoilers, they do actually go back to their original timeline. But the neat thing that they ended up doing here is that there's these 2 mutants that Ahab was using to create hounds very quickly. They're named Maxime and Manon. I believe they are French. And with their powers mixed with Jean Grey's, what they are able to do is suppress all of the memories and emotions that these young X-Men have gotten by going to the future and like bury it deep in their minds with like a timer set on it. So by the time that these X-Men grow up into who they are now, those memories and emotions and feelings will all be released. So it was a really cool scene of them going back to their past, and then the X-Men as they are in their older or original selves just kind of like they just suddenly remember all of these things that these younger versions had gone through. So some cool things came out of this with Iceman continuing to be out of the closet and have gotten that experience and learned a lot from that. And then with Jean Grey getting to know this more powerful side of herself without having the Phoenix as well. So there were some really cool things that I think happened with it. And it's not just them going back to the past and not remembering anything. And it's like, well, what does it matter if they came to the future anyway?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm sure the answer to this is going to be yes, but do you think that the artwork on this card accurately depicts Ahab?
Yes, no, it definitely depicts Ahab in a great way, especially with all of the hounds around him. He's just got chains on them. I think the Mark Brooks art is impeccable, definitely.
What else would you like to tell us about Ahab?
I don't think I've got much else to really say. Again, I just really hope we get a Rachel Gray or a Prestige, as she's also called, card, so that we can have her in our Hound deck.
Awesome. Well, let's move on to our second card. Thank you so much, Matt. Justin will be reviewing the card Charlie-27. Charlie-27 is from the Legacy set. His card number is LEG023. He is only a supporting character, and his team affiliation is Guardians of the Galaxy. The card art is from the 2015 series Korvac Saga, issue 1 and page 8. The penciler and inker is Otto Schmidt. So, Justin, if you could tell us, what is Otto Schmidt's style, or have they done anything else that we might know?
Otto Schmidt hasn't done too much. I went and checked out his art, which is great, but he's not like a regular in the comic book stables as far as I've seen. But I do think that he should get some more work, because I think the work that he did on the Korvac Saga was really, really good and really dynamic and really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And how can we find Otto Schmidt online?
So on Instagram, he's at Otto Schmidt. Twitter is Otto Schmidt72. Facebook is Otto Schmidt Art. And he's also got schmidteugenart.blogspot.com.
Fancy.
Crystal clear. Yeah, that's perfect. And the colorist is Chris Peter. What about Chris Peter?
Yeah, Chris Peter is at Chris Peter on Twitter and at Chris Peter Digital Colors on Facebook and chrispeterdigitalcolors.com. Chris does kind of a cartoony style of coloring, and she matches really well with the cartoony style and the dynamic line work of Otto Schmidt. So I actually think this comic, for how under the radar it is, I think the artwork is really good.
Mm-hmm. I do think that Chris is quite cartoony. Chris also did FF number 22, which is where the artwork came from for the Wizard card that we have. And that issue is pretty cartoony. We have sourced that card, and if you look on our Facebook page, you can see the entire panel there, and it is quite cartoony. The writer is Dan Abnett. What else has Dan Abnett written that people might know?
So notably, Dan Abnett did a lot of the Annihilation Conquest writing, as well as the 2008 Guardians of the Galaxy series, which he co-wrote with his buddy Andy Lanning. And that's the series that basically kicked off the movie that we all know and love with the characters like Star-Lord and Rocket. So you can thank Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning for that. And he's on Instagram at Dabnet and Twitter at Vincent Abnett, which he shares with his wife, and Facebook is at dan.abnett and danabnett.com.
Mm-hmm. And Annihilation Conquest also gave us the artwork for Ultron, the illustrated Ultron card that we have.
That's correct.
Dan also wrote the comics that the art was pulled from for Starhawk from Legacy, both original and reprint Cosmos and the original Star-Lord, all from various Guardians of the Galaxy comics. So let's take a look at Charlie-27 himself. I'll admit, I had never heard of Charlie-27 before this card came out in Legacy, but he can be a bruiser. So please tell me all about Charlie-27. Who is he?
Yeah, Charlie-27 is funny because he is a bruiser, and I knew that having read the 1990s Guardians of the Galaxy series in which he appears. And so when I first pulled this card out of the box and I saw that he was a 1 cost, 1 attack, 1 defense, I was like, what is going on here? And then I saw he had 3 health, and I said, okay, that kind of makes up for it, because that means he's got, he can take a lot of hits, which makes a lot of sense. But then if you look at his power, Jovian Strength, then when he's attacking, you can pay a might, and Charlie-27 gains attack and defense until he is 27-27 this combat. And then that's when I was like, oh, I get it now. This is actually a really good card. And in the world of Versus, 27-27, until recently, almost might as well have been Infinity, because it's just such a high number for the kinds of numbers that you see in this game.
And now we have Galactus.
Which you can't quite take out with 1 punch. So I think the 27-27 is good flavor, considering he's Charlie-27. And his Jovian Strength. That Jovian just means he's from Jupiter. So in the 31st century, humans engineered other humans to live on other planets. So in Charlie-27's lineage, they've been engineered to live in and withstand Jupiter's crushing gravity. So he just has that Jovian Strength.
Is that where the 27 comes from, or where does 27 come from for him?
That's a good question, and I don't have the specific answer, but I just assume it sounded science fiction-y.
Interesting.
I don't know if his father was Charlie-26, but could be.
Hey, Justin.
What?
Did you know that there is a character in the 1991 series of Marvel's Sleepwalker called Nineball?
I did not.
I heard that he was afraid of Charlie-27 because Charlie-27 ate 9.
I refuse to laugh at that.
All right, tell us about this story. What led to this story? What's going on? What happens in this issue?
All right, here's the intro. Lord Michael Korvic governs the Forest Hills, but his domain is threatened by rival lords, chaotic threats from beyond the wall, and worst of all, a dark madness that is spreading through the population. Led by the noble Major Victory, Korvic's loyal guardians must find the source of the evil before it corrupts the world as they know it.
That's why you wanted to read that one, Major Victory.
He just deserves a main character.
And for everybody to know, Justin is wearing a Vance Astro shirt right now, so holding Major Victory close to his chest.
So there's something that's really interesting about this particular Charlie-27 because he comes from the Korvic series saga, which was a part of the Secret Wars summer event. And in that event, basically all of the Marvel titles got rebooted as alternate universe versions of themselves. So this version of Charlie-27 is actually from Earth 15,513. So he's not from the mainstream Marvel universe, which would be 616, and he's not even from the Guardians of the Galaxy's 31st Century universe, which number I forget. So he's a completely original Charlie-27 compared to like all of the other 31st Century Guardians of the Galaxy.
So the prime Charlie-27 might still be out there and we could get another card?
Yeah, we could get a mantle Charlie-27 that's the real Chuck, and meanwhile we've got this fake Chuck that we're dealing with, who's very good, but given that we have the double mantle Ultimate Universe Spider-Man, I'm confident that the game designers will see fit to give us a mantle Charlie-27 from the proper Guardians of the Galaxy universe.
Wink, wink. Because of this podcast, we're going to get another Charlie-27, and we are going to get Omega level Jean Grey, who is an Omega level badass.
And hopefully a Major Victory main character.
Keep trying.
So I'm gonna coin the term fake Chuck as any character in the Versus cards that we think is from the 616 universe, but we find out is actually from a different universe. And there's actually another Guardian of the Galaxy in the game that is from another unexpected universe that we may reveal at a future date, but I'm just going to put that teaser out there now. So fake Chuck is that comes from fake Shemp, which was what Sam Raimi called his extras in the Evil Dead movies. When they went over budget and all of the actors quit, then he got these other actors to look like the old actors, and he called them fake Shemps because it's after Shemp the Stooge, who died, and they had to make a fake Shemp to finish out his contracted movies. So, long story short, fake Chuck. You heard it here first.
What a treat.
Rocket could be a fake Chuck, but we don't know because we can't find where that Rocket Raccoon art came from.
Yeah, he's the one character that I can't find the source material for.
It got away.
Yeah.
If you know where Rocket Raccoon came from, where that art is from, please let us know. We are dying to find out.
Yeah.
All right, is there anything else that you would like to tell us about Charlie-27?
I want to know what happened to his dad, because I've read all of the Guardians of the Galaxy issues, and in the very first appearance, he sees his dad being captured by Badoon warriors, and they take him off in a rocket, and that's literally the last time we ever heard from him. So since 1969, I think, there's been this lingering thread of what happened to Charlie-27, what happened to Charlie-26, and I'm sort of surprised that no writer has come back to sew up that dangling thread, but that's the rest that I have to say about Charlie-27 for now.
Do you think that this artwork accurately depicts Charlie-27?
I do. I think it's really fun, and it shows him with a lot of strength, and he's actually coming up against an abomination-like monster that he's trying to take down with a single punch or whatever. He does have a costume that's reminiscent of one of his earlier costumes, but being a 90s kid, I always kind of want to see the more Arnold Schwarzenegger-y looking Charlie-27 from the Jim Valentino series. But, I'll take what I can get.
Mm-hmm. And I think we touched about this last episode as well, but briefly, Charlie-27 was in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Is that correct?
Yes, he was played by Ving Rhames, and he's at the end of the movie.
All right. Thanks, Justin. Well, last episode we talked a bit about the roles of the penciler, inker, and colorist. Today, we'll be touching on the world of comic book covers. Designing a comic book cover is an art form in and of itself. Covers are powerful tools that are often used to introduce new characters or foreshadow notable character deaths. Comic book covers are designed to stand out on the shelf and bring people into new comics. They follow a different visual hierarchy than the art inside the issue, varying in size, color, contrast, proximity, texture, white space, and other properties that could help catch the reader's eye. One technique may be the excess use of white space. A cover with a lot of white can draw the eye to a specific subject matter with color. Style and textures may be completely different than what you see on the interior of the issue as well. While I get it, this is not a personal preference of mine. I would rather the art on the cover depict what I'm going to see on the inside, but I digress. Color and contrast are also super important. The color wheel is heavily referenced when choosing the color palette for a cover, and a specific style or palette is often maintained throughout a series or story arc. A cover with contrasting colors uses two colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel to really make the art pop off the page. Again, the purpose of a comic cover is to really grab your attention when the comic is on the shelf at your comic store. Repetition in comic covers is something that can be very subtle but super impactful. Repetition can connect stories, maybe without you even realizing it. Using the same or similar elements in multiple comics of the same series, repetition is a way to depict flow of a story or the significance of a particular issue. For example, the cover of Alpha Flight number 12 in each volume has the same visual element where the faces of the members of the team are shown in these black circles. It really makes me wonder how many comics I've read where the cover has implemented some sort of repetition or has paid homage to a previous issue. And speaking of paying homage, some artists may choose to pay homage to a previous piece of art. The difference between copying and paying homage, in my opinion, is really attribution. Some artists can do something very similar to a previous work and then put the word after and the originator's name to note that they are paying homage to a previously published piece of artwork. Matt also mentioned variant covers earlier. A variant cover comic means that the issue was printed with multiple covers, each with unique cover art. Some covers are limited to one for every number of issues ordered by a particular comic shop, which is why they can be hard to find or more expensive than your standard cover. The first comic book ever marketed with a variant cover was the first issue of the 1986 run of Man of Steel, which featured two different covers by writer and artist John Byrne. Nowadays, variant covers are often done by different artists. Normally, cover artists will actually design their image to allow space for objects such as barcode, title, and publisher emblem. But if you're lucky enough, you may even be able to find a virgin variant cover, which means the cover has nothing but the art. No logo, no barcode, no title, just the art in its purest form. I hope you've learned something about art today, and we hope that you have learned a little bit more about comic covers. Before we sign off for the day, I want to give a shout out to our first patrons, Mr. Ben, Ty, and Katie. We have some pretty cool stuff planned for the future, but we need your help. If you want to support what we're doing, please join us at patreon.com. Thanks for joining, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching for Deconstruct VS. Until next time, go read some comics.